There comes a moment in an empath's life that doesn't feel dramatic on the outside, but internally, it changes everything. It's not loud, it's not visible, but it's irreversible. This is the moment of awakening. And what most people don't tell you is that it doesn't instantly bring peace, it brings separation. Before this shift, connection often feels natural, even effortless. You give, you listen, you adjust. You become what others need, sometimes without even realizing it. You build friendships, relationships, and social circles based on shared time, shared history, or shared convenience. But beneath all of that, there's a quiet discomfort that many empaths learn to ignore, a sense that something isn't fully aligned. Awakening removes your ability to ignore it. You begin to notice things you once overlooked, the inconsistency in people's words and actions, the subtle manipulation hidden behind charm, the way some conversations leave you drained rather than fulfilled. You don't become more judgmental, you become more aware, and awareness changes your tolerance. This is where the separation begins. It's not that people suddenly turn against you, it's that you stop participating in dynamics that were never healthy to begin with. You stop laughing at things that don't feel right. You stop over-explaining yourself just to maintain comfort. You stop carrying emotional weight that was never yours.
But internally, something very different is happening. You're no longer confusing presence with connection. You're no longer mistaking attention for understanding. You're becoming precise. And precision requires letting go of what doesn't fit. There's also a psychological shift that takes place here that's worth understanding. When you're deeply empathetic, but not yet awakened, your identity is often tied to how well you can maintain relationships. You measure your value by how needed you are, how appreciated you feel, how well you can keep the peace. But awakening disrupts that framework entirely. You begin to see that constantly adapting to others isn't connection, it's self-abandonment. And once you see that clearly, you can't go back. So you start choosing differently. You choose silence over forced conversation. You choose distance over emotional confusion. You choose authenticity over acceptance. And while those choices are healthier, they also come with consequences. Not everyone understands them. Not everyone respects them. Some people interpret your change as rejection, when in reality, it's recognition. You're recognizing what is real and what is not, and that recognition creates space. Now, here's the part that matters most. This space is not a punishment, it's a recalibration. It's where your standards reset. It's where your perception sharpens. It's where you begin to understand that connection is not about quantity, it's about congruence. You're no longer asking who is a...
Removes the noise so you can finally hear what's genuine. So if you find yourself in this phase where your circle is shrinking, where interactions feel different, where solitude is becoming more familiar, understand what's actually happening. You're not losing people. You're losing illusions. And in that process, you're gaining something far more valuable than temporary connection. You're gaining truth. And once you see the truth clearly, you'll never again confuse being surrounded with being understood. Once that initial separation takes place, something subtle but powerful begins to shift in the way an awakened empath relates to their own emotional depth. What once felt overwhelming, almost like a liability, starts to reorganize itself into something far more structured. You're no longer drowning in what you feel. You're learning how to read it. Before this stage, emotional sensitivity often operates without direction. You pick up on everything: the moods of a room, the tension behind someone's smile, the unspoken dynamics in a conversation. But without clarity, it becomes exhausting. You absorb.
Without discernment leads to overwhelm. Sensitivity with discernment becomes precision. You begin to realize that not everything you feel is yours to hold. And more importantly, not everything you perceive deserves your engagement. This is where emotional depth transforms into a filter. You start noticing patterns, not just emotions. You see how people respond under pressure, how consistent they are over time, how their behavior aligns or doesn't with what they claim to value. You're no longer reacting to isolated moments. You're observing systems of behavior. And once you start thinking in patterns, your decision-making changes. You don't need dramatic events to tell you something is off. Subtle inconsistencies are enough. A slight shift in tone, a repeated contradiction, an energy that feels performative rather than genuine. These are small signals, but to an awakened empath, they're data points. And over time, those data points form a clear picture. You don't have to confront everything. You don't have to explain everything. You simply adjust your level of access. That's what filtering really means. It's not about building walls or becoming emotionally unavailable. It's about becoming selective with your presence. You're no longer offering your time, your attention, or your emotional investment indiscriminately. You're choosing where it goes. And that choice is based on alignment, not obligation.